All right. It is another round of Trino Tuesday, and we have a special Valentine's Day episode coming up. Um, so welcome, Jan.
So,
Oh man, hold on, give me a second. My headset is not doing what it's supposed to do. Actually, I'm just going to take it off. So apparently, it's just not going to work today. I'm going to go with the built-in Mac speakers. All right. Can you say something one more time?
hello. Can you hear me?
All right. Now it might be doing my. Now that I put the headphones down, it's gonna try doing the headphones again. All right. How about now? Okay.
Hello.
Now it works. Now it works. So I just needed to cast some doubt.
Or turn it off and on again.
Yeah, basically. Okay, so we're going to be doing something that we've been basically using this this forum, this Trino Tuesday forum, for kind of like reviews and things like that. But I hadn't just had it in mind for just doing like, here's how you do a code review, and let's get some code reviews done on things that probably just haven't had a lot of love lately. So we did that with a couple times with the Helm charts. Got a couple of reviews in there, and we're just waiting Ashar's return from PTO to take a dive into those. But now I kind of wanted to like make this more generic, like just conversation, hangout things. And like one of the things that we discussed, Jan, I think it was either last week or 2 weeks that we came. Yeah, I think it was 2 weeks ago that we came up with the idea. Was we need to figure out like how to show people how to dive into connectors more, and we were talking about this cool tool suite that you've set up called well, you didn't set up Maven, but you set up the archetype for Maven. And here I'm about to pull up the GitHub for that. Let me just do that real fast and share my screen. Share. Sharing is caring. All right. And we'll go to the hub of Git, and let's dive into, so your 9-inch Nick, and actually I recently went to this repo. So this is the your and for some reason, okay, I guess I can't zoom into the URL there. But if you go to, this is Jan's incredible handle, 9-inch Nick. Actually, can you tell people where that's from, just so that people understand what?
I stole this from Fallout 2.
Okay.
There's a quest in there's this place, the city, New Reno, that you can go there, and there's like a gym and a boxing club, and you can start your boxing career, and you have to choose a nickname. And this is one of the, I think, like 50 nicknames you can choose from.
And that's the one you went with the whole time, huh?
Yep.
Okay. I when I first saw it, I thought it was a play on 9-inch Nails.
I think it is. So it's just not my idea.
Yeah, fair enough. Anyways, so if you want to find Jan on GitHub, he has a lot of cool repos to just dive into if you're just like wanting to just hang around and just check out some cool stuff. So go to 9-inch Nick username, and then just look at all his repos. But particularly the one we're diving in today is the Trino plugin archetype. So Jan, could you just kind of go over a little bit of like what motivated you to even like make this, and what problem and pain that it's scratching for the Trino community?
So when I started learning Trino, I didn't have any Java background, so even navigating through the classes was a little bit of an issue for me. My first Trino connector took me, I think, like about a week to create until I have something I can build and run. And this is like a very long time, and you can get easily discouraged along the way.
Yeah.
So after I created a few of those connectors, I got better at copying and pasting the base, and just modifying some some examples. And at some point I measured myself, and I noticed it still took me like 2 hours just to get up and running with an empty connector that you can build and run it, and that just returns a constant value and has a single table. So I figured that having this kind of template would help to, get up to speed quickly and just test some ideas very quickly.
Yeah.
It also adds all the other nice things that you initially don't care about, but they become a real chore later on, like doing releases and how to package the plugin and where to upload it. So I use I assume that it's going to be used with GitHub. You kind of have to use GitHub to host your repository. And you if you use this archetype, you get a GitHub workflow that's using GitHub Actions that can build your plugin and create a release that includes a zip file that you can download later. And it makes it a lot easier to install whatever plugin you can create in I don't know, like a custom Trino image later on.
Let's back up for just a quick second. So for those of you who are like new to Java, actually, or any type of like development in the space, so Maven is essentially like a dependency manager, is how I kind of view it. I don't know if there's like, what's the correct term? I mean, it's like
I'd say a build system.
Build system. There you go. Okay. Because there are more things than it does than just manage these dependencies, but it essentially also compiles artifacts for you, and it basically has a list of things that it executes. Right. It's basically like you think about it, if you're from the data world, kind of like an orchestrator of sorts, or CI/CD. Think of maybe like Jenkins or something like that. That's kind of doing a list of tasks for you. And I know that these aren't like one for one, Jan. I see your questioning face. What I'm trying to basically get as a more generic phrase is that it's a thing that kind of that handles some sort of sequence of events, and based on some, based on some, you can think of this as like a DAG, like there's a list of potential things that you can run, and depending on the context, depending on the arguments you feed, depending on all these different kind of things, Maven will execute and build your Java, or it could be other JVM based systems. I don't know, does Maven do anything outside of JVM?
I mean, you can do a lot of things with it because it has plugins,
kind of generic,
and like there's an exec plugin that can execute arbitrary commands, so you can do whatever you want with it. Same way that people use makefile for executing just arbitrary commands. So you can, if you're familiar with make, it's like the equivalent of make in Java.
Yeah, it's basically giving you a framework in terms of like how to pull together all these bits of code, compile them into something that's runnable, and then like spit out an artifact roughly. That's the main goal of what I would say Maven does. I mean, and maybe Jan, correct me if I'm missing anything.
Yep, that's it.
Okay, so and then here we got Kobe that joined us. Maybe let me see. Maven is a build system / torture harness. I gotta read these before. I actually know it's better to just get the live reaction of the torture.
Yes.
So yeah, there's obviously like a lot of crazy downsides to like you running Maven and pitfalls, right? Like if you're not coming from the Java system, it's a bit of a learning curve, and you're constantly like fighting against the framework. I find a lot like sometimes you'll have like things that are cached, and that's to make the build run faster. But then like you'll have the wrong thing get cached on accident, or like, so I feel like half my day is spent like deleting and reinstalling like Maven caching. Like,
yeah, that's why people usually run Maven clean install instead of just Maven install, just to, not have to worry about the local build cache.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just one of the many things. And Evo, to your question, why does it have to be so hard? I feel like we just, there are certain things when people design a lot of these systems. This is like a whole tangent we could go down, but like when you think about system design, like sometimes the focus is too heavy on like the maybe performance or efficiency and not usability of a system. And I think Maven, was really popularized at a time where it was all about like just it needs to perform well. Developers can figure it out, right? And there is still this mentality that it's like if you can't figure these things out yourself, or just use Stack Overflow, right? It'll have all the answers for you. But like I feel like nowadays there is a heavier lean towards like developer experience in these tools than there was,
Yes.
Even 5 to 10 years ago. That like now it's like, oh, like maybe this could be more performant, but it makes it really difficult for people to actually do this thing, and they'll end up getting performance once they get it right, but that'll be like 2 weeks later, and maybe they've already dumped the tool by that time, right? Yep. Like this is actually like a good parallel to like what like Trino as well, right? Like Trino was kind of, I'd say, one of the first iterations out of big data technologies that was trying to aim more on developer experience than just purely focusing on like, how do we and there was a lot of performance aspects that were fixed as well with Trino. But like, I think in general, this was one of the first tools that I've seen in kind of that on the trajectory line of like, the focus was really heavily more catered to how people were going to install this and deploy it and get it out there, how it's going to fit on the cloud and all these things, right? Like as people were moving more to those types of architecture. So anyways, this is a whole rabbit trail we can go down to, but Jan, I'll open up if you have anything else to say on developer experience and why do these tools have to be so hard?
I mean, it's generally hard, and like you have all the history that come with it, right? Like Java is a relatively old language right now, and the ecosystem evolved, and like you cannot ignore that this happened. I think it's worth calling out like how Go approached it. They focused really on having a very good tool set, and it makes a huge difference. So like developing with Go is so pleasant, mostly because of what you get out of the box and how well designed is the local development tooling and environment. So I mean, it's maybe we should not go and try to figure out like how we can improve that in Java, because that's a long story. We can acknowledge this right now, that this is an issue that we can try to solve in different ways. I've seen people come to the Trino Slack and maybe not complain, but just ask how are they supposed to create a new Maven project if they want to start on a new on a new connector. And like obviously this is an issue for this is making the learning curve steeper. And our developer guide in Trino doesn't really go over this in much detail. And also another obstacle is that Trino plugins are using a different packaging mechanism in Maven. They don't use the default one, which produces jar files, I think, and instead they use a Trino Maven plugin that packages them into a zip file. And you kind of have to know about this to be able to use it. So like even writing an initial POM file is a challenge. And also currently the Trino repository includes an example plugin and like an example connector, but it's included in it's one of the Trino submodules, and it means that it's designed to live in the Trino repository. And like if you want to move it out of the Trino repository, you have to modify this POM file. So it's not trivial if you're new to all of this.
Yeah. I think that's kind of what we're wanting to dive into in these next couple like Trino Tuesdays, is to really just talk about these things, because it's hard to go over everything all at once, but at least we can kind of attempt to make this a first attempt. And the great vantage point that I have right now is I know a lot of things about Trino from the using it perspective. It's been about 2 years since I've like really hacked, because I moved into this more developer advocacy role that kind of does more like getting people acquainted with using it. And so I've I've been kind of itching to get back into the code base myself. I do a couple things here and there, but I've like realized that I've like stumbled a lot more in the last while. So I think this is actually like, what I'm like, the forum that we're kind of proposing here is that I'm actually at a pretty like standard level that a lot of people using Trino are at, where they haven't really developed or gotten into the weeds of Trino code, yet they want to develop a plugin. So Jan, you are kind of more Trino code base expert, at least than I am. You've looked under the covers enough, and you are able to kind of guide me in towards, especially just using this simple setup. And what we're going to try to do today is we're going to try to set up a JDBC connector, which nobody would know this, but under the covers, we have a lot of stuff that's already been taken care of for any connector that we write that's based on a JDBC connection, because there's so much standardization with JDBC, and JDBC is Java Database Connection. What's the C stand for?
I don't know.
JDBC is
that was closed. What you said.
Let me see, JDBC. Let's just definition. Java database connectivity. Yeah, it's like connection, connectivity, blah blah. It's basically this like very standardized like API that you use.
The important bit is that you have this API, but the important bit is it maps very well to all the terms used in Trino. Like you have the same terms, like the same terms exist. I mean, basically, like Trino is an SQL engine, and that has tables and like schemas tables and columns, and allows to run queries on those. And JDBC also have them, so like it's relatively easy to create a data source that can read from a read data using a JDBC driver, just because those terms align. It's much more work to create a connector for an arbitrary data source where you as the author of the connector have to figure out how to map different things to all of the objects that exist in Trino.
Yeah, and that's usually, I think, the heaviest lift is actually doing a lot of the initial mapping, and then you have to therefore learn a lot of the APIs. So if you have something like, so basically what we're saying here with we're connecting to SQLite. SQLite has a JDBC driver, which ironically, by the way, is maintained by somebody who's in the Trino community.
Interesting.
Yeah, so he's from. In fact, actually, let's just if you Google SQLite. I don't know if I think it's without two L's. SQLite JDBC driver, and it's serial JDBC. So let's so you know this one, right? So if you look at serial, this is actually Taro Saito from ARM Treasure Data, and I can't remember, did Treasure Data was the original, and then ARM acquired Treasure Data. But yeah, so whoops, he was actually at the last Trino contributor congregation. So he contributes a significant amount to Trino, but he has this, I mean, very well known and used JDBC driver library that is used to connect to this. So as I was looking this up for this little episode, I don't do too much prep for this, but I just wanted to see like which JDBC driver do we use. And as I saw this, I was like, oh my gosh, I know somebody famous. You have one of those moments on GitHub where you're like, ah. So next time I see you, Taro, I'm gonna.
So small.
I know. Next time I see you, Taro, I'm gonna be a huge fanboy. So okay. So basically, we're gonna be using this JDBC driver, and we're connecting to SQLite. SQLite's this kind of like very lightweight, easy to use kind of database that essentially, instead of writing all this fancy like proprietary, it does have kind of proprietary, but it's like it's this real fancy like layouts for B plus indexing and all this really efficient performance stuff. Like SQLite is basically just doing the bare minimum to give you a database lookups at decent speeds, and essentially like the database itself it pretty much spits out to a file, right? These really small files. That's mostly just the data itself, and these are really useful for like, if you're on an Android phone or something like that, and you don't want to take up too much extra space because of all this indexing and blah blah blah. Like SQLite's the perfect kind of SQL index or SQL database that you'd want to use in a more connected environment. And so therefore, like, because it's a stripped down version of like a SQL database, it becomes a very nice, like, one for us to do here today, because it should be provided we have like a lot of the JDBC stuff, it should be pretty simple. I'm a little nervous because I feel like I'm going to expose how dumb I am, but I'm totally happy to do that and make everybody else feel comfortable with doing this stuff. So all I've done so far is I cloned that Git repository that we were just talking about that Jan has made. It's going to basically give us a lot of this, scaffolding to basically set this stuff up. And so to have this done, you obviously have to have like Java installed, and you have to have Maven installed, which I actually don't even remember. This would really suck if I didn't have Maven installed. Let's see. I'm pretty sure I have to have Maven installed.
I might have the Maven wrapper installed in this repository. Can you just list all the files? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or no, we don't have it here. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Not in this one, but it's. I think it's included in the archetype, so it's actually gonna install the Maven wrapper in the target project that you're gonna build.
Okay, so tell me what do you mean by Maven wrapper and all these kinds of terms?
Yeah, this is like a shell script that downloads Maven. If you don't have it, the idea is to always use the same version of Maven, so you can kind of embed it in your project and not require developers to install it.
Oh yeah, I didn't even, I've used the wrapper all this time, and I just had I was like, I have to have Maven installed for the wrapper. I didn't even know that you. I thought it was just a fancy script to add extra like version, like at least this version or things like that. I did not realize that it actually downloads Maven for you.
Yep.
Nice. Okay, cool. So we're gonna use so Maven basically requires this file called POM. Which is as you can see is an XML file. So this is basically what a POM looks like. It has, it's just an XML file, right? Has a couple extra like tags on this, so that kind of Maven is ensuring that it's dealing with the right versions of the objects that it's expecting. And basically in here, you're putting in things to make this project unique. If you were to ever publish this on like a public forum, like the Maven repository. So Jan has used his website in reverse because, we're cool in Java like that. We have to just inverse our so if I have like, google.com, com.google would be the group ID that would probably be used for a lot of Google stuff. And then, you could add more name spacing to it depending on what you want. But so this is, coming from wasp.net in Poland. And then we talk about the actual artifact. So Jan might want to, install multiple artifacts. So we have this Trino plugin archetype root, version here, description, and then the packaging is going to be POM packaging. So sometimes you'll make things like jars as a thing that gets spit out, or you'll also make things that are like WAR is a web archive. Is that what it is? I remember there's Josh Long from the Spring community. Spring really went against WARs because they wanted everything to be self-contained and runnable, like more generically. So they started using jars. And he had this hilarious quote: "Make jar, not WAR." Anyways, so this is just the type of packaging and the artifact that you're supposed to produce. So you could produce like a tar file, you could produce all sorts of funky stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean the packaging needs to be supported by Maven or a plugin that gets loaded into Maven. So yeah,
okay.
You cannot put anything here. You have to know what kind of packaging modes are supported.
So we're not going to get into the full details of Maven right now. You can look up a lot of this stuff. Adding things like licenses, all these kind of cool properties, like which compiler or Java build should you be using. And we are using 17 in Trino, so therefore on this latest versions you should be using Java version 17. And then this is where we start getting into like all these plugins that Jan's talking about. We're pulling in different Maven and plugins, which is the install, deploy. These are basically going to give like Maven the capabilities to start pulling and doing all the build steps that we're doing here. So yeah, Jan, is there anything like, let's not dive too far into this. I just wanted people to understand like what Maven's doing under the covers just a little bit. But like, is there anything important for people to understand when it comes to like the POM in here?
Or not, I don't think so. I mean,
okay.
In the context of creating a new connector, you can, if you're going to be using this archetype, you're going to end up with like a default POM that would work for this basic connector that gets created. If you're going to be creating a generic connector, reading data from a different data source, depending on how exactly do you read data, you will most likely need different dependencies. So like if you're going to be making HTTP requests, you're going to need some kind of HTTP client, and you most likely will use some dependency for this. Either HTTP, this is a well-known HTTP client library in Java,
Yeah.
or maybe even the HTTP client from Airlift, that's the library used by Trino.
Okay. So all these things are getting pulled in, and this happens actually when we run Maven directives. And so the very well-known Maven directive is this Maven install that you have sitting here. So to pull this archetype, we click on Maven install. We'll just copy it verbatim. I'm gonna go full noob on this. So now Maven's doing all of its magic. If you ever want to look cool, like you're doing something super important, just run a Maven install on like a really large project, and you'll look very important. So this has all of the things that you would need. Like I think I've seen a lot of the kind of the when you watch Hollywood movies and like things that they're usually doing either like an NPM install nowadays, or back in the day I saw a couple Maven installs that they would do. It was literally just like having this code just fly across the screen so that you look like you were really hacking.
So the interesting part that's happening right now is that we've seen that it's running tests. So like the Maven install goal actually includes a few other goals or phases. I don't remember exactly what's the difference. But it's compiling the project. It's downloading all the dependencies, compiling the project, testing it, and building packaging. And then when it has the packages built, it can install it into the local Maven repository. That's actually what the install goal does. The tests here are very interesting because, and this comes with just Maven artifacts. Oh yeah, that looks like a Trino issue. I think I haven't updated something
in the example JDBC.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't finished this one. I started adding another example connector, like a JDBC connector, but I haven't finished that. So it's not needed. You could just remove the module, like either ignore it by adding a Maven flag, or remove it from the modules list. It's somewhere in the middle of this file. Like you can find modules.
I passed it. I think I saw it. There we go.
Yeah.
And JDBC right here.
Yeah, either comment it out. So I just wanted to say that the tests included in this archetype actually build the archetype and install it. So they do all the things that we're gonna do in a bit. So it's testing that it actually works and it produces a working project. So it uses the archetype to build a new connector, and it runs tests in this connector. So it makes sure that you can actually create a new project, and this new project builds and executes all its tests correct?
And I think this actually answers a question that we got from Evo a second ago. So is there an official plugin template repo? And that is a hard no. The official one, I would say the closest thing to an official one. But now what do we got? Archetype Builder?
Yeah, that's a different error. Can you scroll up a little bit?
Yeah. Where's the error? There you go. Integration test. So it looks like a test failed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what I just described a moment ago failed because it couldn't create a new project using this archetype. So maybe let's finish answering this question.
Sure. So, okay. So is there an official plugin template repo? So basically Jan is, I would say, basically building this, right? Like there's not an official one yet, but this is going to be I'd say the most streamlined way to build a to essentially scaffold something, right?
Yes,
But
yes.
say it how you would want to say it though, Jan.
I want to publish this archetype into Maven Central, so you can use it directly with the archetype Maven plugin. So like to answer this, like the short answer to this question is template repo is just Maven Central. Like you would publish all archetypes into Maven Central. So I guess the answer is yes. A longer answer would be maybe a different question would be is there do we have official plugin templates in Trino? We don't have them yet. I submitted a pull request to Trino with a slightly simplified archetype for a connector, and it's still in review. So maybe if it's gonna get merged, it's gonna get published to Maven Central together with all the other Trino artifacts, and you're gonna be able to use it to create new connectors very easily, and it's gonna be up to date because it's gonna get released with every Trino release.
So, like a good example. Actually, let's look at this base GDBC because this will go into a little bit of something we're going to talk about later on this. So, so one of the packages, right? One of the things that is the Maven packages that is generated every time we do a Trino release is this Trino base JDBC. So this is just one example of many artifacts. So if you just search on Maven Central Repository io.trino.io, because again, we were talking about how like we use things to make ourselves unique. The way you make yourself unique is, so if we look at trino.io, that is the forward way of putting it. And so that is actually used in the group ID to kind of group everything for Trino is io.trino. So if you want to look for every artifact that is published to this Maven repo, it is sitting in here. By the way, anybody that's on here, unfortunately, we're not going to like get right into this because I think there's actually a lot of this Maven stuff to explain first anyways. So I think this episode will probably end up just being us explaining Maven stuff and getting things ready. I think next one will be the time where we can easily just jump into the go button, and then this will be the context. So apologies for kind of giving a little bit of this thing like, hey, this is going to be the time where we actually immediately jump into SQLite. I think I was starting to explain this.
Maybe we gonna be able to build at least a very basic connector.
Yeah, let's
because
try.
It is supposed to be easy.
yeah. So, but I think this explanation is good for people that need it, and I think a lot of people are already going to have this context. So it'll be easy when you have the context, and you'll just have to watch this one beforehand. But let's at least give it our best try to get this done in 30 minutes while explaining all these kind of necessary details. So so when we're talking about the artifacts, like we look at the artifact that's generated by this Trino base JDBC. What is it? Is it a POM or is it a let me see.
It's that, well, so the artifact is a collection of classes.
Oh, yeah.
It's probably a jar file. This is a base plugin that you can use to create more connectors.
Gotcha. So the things that actually get pulled down, right, are jar files that have a whole bunch of like binaries, right? That's generally...
If you open dependence, the dependence tab, you should see all the other the actual Trino plugins or connectors. Yep. So those are like all the JDBC Trino connectors.
Yep.
that
So if you
uses
ever are curious
base
to know
class.
this is actually a good way to find it. Like SQL Server, Single Store, like all of these use JDBC, the JDBC drivers of all of these individual databases, and so they use the same underlying code, which is where Jan kind of found this hack. Like, hey, an easy way to basically show people how to use plugins. Let's start out with using a JDBC connector because that like level sets and
Oh,
keeps a
well,
lot of.
I started with generic connectors, and I just recently started adding a JDBC based connect, like
Okay, I'm just
a
talking
JDBC
about your.
example. Yeah.
Jan, I'm trying to compliment you on your vision for helping out the Trino community here. Just give me so you started out with the generic one, but then you moved into the JDBC one because of this kind
Like
of.
honestly, I just wanted to see what's gonna like how much easier it's gonna be to create a JDBC connector, because I knew there's a base class that gonna, like, you don't have to using this base class, you don't have to take care of, like, implement all the necessary basic connector SPIs or APIs.
Yeah,
So I wanted to see how much difference is it gonna make,
yeah,
and it's the difference is huge. Like,
yeah,
so like for a basic connector, you have to implement like a metadata class that's going to list all the tables, and then like describe the tables, what kind of columns the tables include, and then you have to include implement let's say a record set provider that will actually return data for the table or tables, like one or more. Uh, in the JDBC, and like, so this is the minimum example, but then you still have to include a few classes that maybe don't even extend anything from Trino, but they just need to exist. So
yeah,
you have to create, like, I don't know, 6 or 8 different files in
yeah.
Java. In the JDBC, like if you would use the base JDBC connector class, you only need to create 3 files, so it's much simpler to
Yeah.
start.
Yeah, and I think this is a good introduction into it. So that's just so everybody knows like why we're doing this the JDBC way. Eventually, we will hop in the hard mode and do the more like generic example for something that, let's say, doesn't have a JDBC connector, but so many
Let me step
databases
away
have them.
from a moment. I need
Sure,
to turn on
sure.
the light.
So I'm going to finish answering this question. So Evo, is there an official plugin? This is kind of what Jan was kind of referring to. So eventually we will have this as kind of the repo where you will pull these artifacts that are created via POM and archetype, and ideally at some point this does get included into the Trino repo, so that people when they're trying to set up a plugin where they're trying to connect to some data system that ideally has JDBC, but even if it doesn't, there'll be a pretty straightforward way to scaffold the initial code for that, and then you'll just have to fill in. We'll start to make more videos on how you fill in the gaps there, whether it's JDBC or a non-JDBC type connector. So that's the ultimate goal, and this is where this repo code would live, and you ideally if you have an IDE that understands Maven and has like an archetypes thing, you could even you don't have to go through all this stuff and pull it down yourself manually. Like you could actually use it in your IDE, and I think if IDE being like IntelliJ or something, IntelliJ has a way to actually search through all the artifacts listed on Sonatype, and so you could actually not even have to go to the website, download anything yourself, or do anything fancy. Like you could literally just include it in and say, hey, I want to use this archetype, and your IDE knows how to actually apply that. So did you know that, Jan? Like,
No,
once we
I'm not really like IntelliJ power user.
Okay, so IntelliJ does have a way for you, and Eclipse does too, if you're using Eclipse, to basically just like scan an archetype, and then it will actually produce the stuff for you. I use this a lot in Spring because Spring has like a million of these archetypes. So anyways, so that's what this goal of this thing is. It will be kind of like essentially, a template, but kind of in a different way than you're maybe thinking. Like template, sometimes I think about it's just like, mustache code and just like, like replacing a couple things. But this is a little more elegant, I would say. It has a lot more capabilities and smarts. So, Kobe, I just want to see this, what you're saying here. Personal preference, using a Docker file and mapping source code as a volume. Oh, that's interesting. So you do this for your plugins, I assume. You're kind of mapping in, I guess, a plugin repo, and then like Docker is kind of pulling this sidecar plugin that you have in. I guess that's cool. But I still think that you'll still need to pull in the development and do that kind of stuff for this thing. So I'm guessing this was in response to something we said, like, I don't know, 10 or 20 minutes ago. Okay, cool. So without like, let's see if we can now come back to this failure and see if we can just get a basic like install done here. So Jan, I unfortunately you can't take over my thing, but like, do you know the a quick fix that I can do for this archetype builder failure?
There's a log file mentioned here in the error message. At the end of the error message, if you scroll up a little bit at the top of the screen,
right here. See
this one. We can take a look there quickly.
Okay.
Take a peek, and if that's not gonna tell us what failed,
let's just cat it all out. It's a pretty big log file, actually.
There was a error. If you scroll slower.
Sorry.
Okay. So.
Some connector plugin.
Yeah. It looks like we have an additional class file. Like they have a different group ID. One looks more like an example, and the other one looks like something that we might be using in the test. Yeah, I mean, so we can do two things here.
Or just ignore the.
I mean, we can try ignoring this, and like, I mean, it kind of looks like we're gonna hit it later when we're gonna try using the archetype, but maybe it's gonna be easier to figure out what's wrong.
Okay.
So we might ignore it for now. Another option is to try to check out an older commit without those changes.
Okay.
Maybe check the releases in the repository and see, because I do make releases here. Those are automatic. Yeah, those are pretty old. It looks like I have
2022.
Yeah, so you might just check out either this commit or find this tag. Yeah, that would be the same, and try building this. It's gonna work in a similar way.
Let's see.
Yeah, just check it out, and just paste the you could just paste the commit or
V18
or type the tag name. You made some changes to the POM file. Maybe this is what's causing the issues.
No, remember we did that. We commented out that.
Oh yes.
So that's probably going to be gone anyways, right?
Yep. You can throw away all the changes. Yeah, either do that manually or you could.
Oh yeah, just get rid of it. Just check out the thing. But
yeah.
It was a small enough change. All right. See, gets
Maven install. You want to just try installing it again.
I mean, this was a release, right? So this has to work.
Yeah, it's going to be using an older version of Trino. You can see that it's 391. So it's from last year.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It's like this archetype is for creating generic connectors, not exactly JDBC based connectors. So
now, so do you not have the JDBC one in this release, do you think?
Not as an archetype. I have an example JDBC based connector. I actually have another PR in Trino to add it to Trino.
It succeeded.
So, yeah. I mean, you can use this to show how would you use an archetype to create a new project, and then we can start editing the project and just convert it to a JDBC based connector.
Sure. Okay, so that'll be our end goal. So let's make a new project. And
you should start with the archetype. Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, let's just show how would you use IntelliJ, because I haven't done that
You haven't
yet.
done IntelliJ yet.
I haven't used IntelliJ to create a new project using an archetype.
Gotcha. So let's just start. My cool plugin, my cool plugin, or my
You should
Trino
name it
plugin.
Trino SQLite.
Trino. Oh,
It's gonna be. That's what we want to do, right?
yeah. And it's with one L. Okay.
Yes.
And let's see. So we'll locate that in code. The archetype. Let's find. Okay. I've only done this. See, these are the ones that you find on Maven Central. These are the ones that you can pull in there. I'm trying to think if I've never actually pulled it locally. I'm wondering if there's a way. Let's go up to and see if I can just point to this, or maybe it needs to be in target. Add. No. Wait. Is there like an actual, so an archetype itself should be
a jar? I mean,
a jar, right?
That was for the directory.
But that's, for the directory. Okay. Archetype resources. Shoot.
I think you have to type it so that you have to type the group ID and artifact ID. It's gonna, the point is that it should look it up in the local Maven repository, which we installed it to.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. Okay. So the group ID.
Yeah, it's pl.net.
Jan.
Was. No.
Was. Was is your last name.
It's
artifact
actually,
ID is.
It's Vash, but it's kind
Vash. Oh my gosh. I was saying it wrong. Was. Vash. All right. So I guess I'm getting Jan right. But yeah, actually your W. Your W has like a V accent, right?
No. The W you read in Polish. W is like the English V.
Okay.
The S has an accent. So
the S has the accent. So it's
yes.
Vash. Vash. Okay. Cool. The S has the accent. I love. I mean, I've only learned Spanish, and the craziest thing we have there is the tilde vowels and like the enya, which is on top of the N. Anyways.
So my last name is even funnier in German because
God,
was in German is what.
What? What?
Yep.
That's awesome.
Okay, so it's best. Like I have this in the README here. How to use it.
Okay. Let me see. What's the version that you have here? 1.8. Okay,
that's
so
the tag you checked out.
Okay, cool. Let's add that then, and then any additional process. So let me just create this and see what happens.
Correct?
This looks like it did it.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. Okay. Cool. So the you were asking the artifact ID?
Yeah, I think it was a different.
I just put 1.8. This says 1.9 snapshot, but before you did this release, it was 1.8. If we look at the history, this should have been 1.8, and then that's.
I don't think it worked. Like you typed in a different artifact ID. So I don't think it actually used the archetype. It just created you a very basic Maven project. It's empty. Like you don't have any source directory.
Okay, cool. Let's delete that again. So now you see what you're not supposed to do. That was how I was planning this.
It was kind of weird that you typed in an invalid archetype artifact ID and it still gave you something.
Yeah. So let's actually let me see. Remove from recent. Oh wait, no, not remove. I just want to delete it. Let me. This is why I wanted to do a fake one at first. Yeah. All right. Let's see. So let's go back in here. We're going to add our own pl.net.vash.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. And then Trino plugin archetype. I put Trino archetype plugin, didn't I? Okay.
Or
Trino
Maven archetype.
Oh God. Totally
Trino
wrong.
plugin archetype.
Plugin archetype. And then we do 1.8. 1.8, and that should do it. Okay. And now we're going to call this one second try and see what
So
happens.
wait. So in the archetype section, can you expand this?
Oh, here?
Yeah.
These are just other things from the public repo that I could
What happens
choose.
if you click add?
That would just be my own. So this is just specifying
Okay,
this
so you
this
added
string
it.
right here.
And the version is for the archetype, right?
Yeah, it's for the archetype.
What's catalog?
Internal, maybe central, default, local. So this is like using your own settings. .xml.
Should this be local? Isn't this
Default local?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, here we go. Yeah. So
Yep.
this one is using Brian M2
Because
repository.
this is where we installed the archetype a while ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah, good idea.
And now you have to pick it up again.
Oh, hey, look, it's
a different one.
That's a default one. Okay. Let's go ahead and pull this again. Okay, so that makes sense. So net.vash. I'm gonna be really good at saying your last name after this. And then we'll do now. Let me just copy this because I am a not good at remembering orders of things back and forth. Okay, and then 1.8. All right, now let's add that. It's looking at wait, what the hell? It went back to internal default local.
I don't know. Can you type it here in the not add? Don't use add, but try typing the name in this drop down.
Okay. Let me see. Net was.
It doesn't autocomplete.
Doesn't autocomplete, right? But
yeah, so I was hoping it's just gonna look it up in the local repository
and then find the right one. That's fine. Let's see. Let's just see if we can get this to do the right thing. Okay. Create Git repository. Sure. We'll also want to. We'll do that next time. But let's just call this second try and see if this works. So I think actually a lot of people will want to use IntelliJ. All right.
They didn't work.
Didn't work. Shoot.
It's running.
Could not find. Oh, here we go. Yeah, see, it's looking for, and internally I have it trying to point to Maven Central. Okay, so let's forget this one then. Let's just do it outside of the way that you have us doing it in the instructions here.
Yep.
I think this is actually going to end up taking the whole time, like explaining this, which is great. Look at you're super green. This is like envy.
I have a workflow that's running daily, and it's just
it looks great.
Commits that's using my email address, and we use this for generating those Trino CI/CD reports.
Oh, great, yeah, that makes sense. Let's see.
So this is just automation.
Yeah. Let's see, arc type. Okay, so you have the actual instructions to do this here. So we've already done the install. So here's where we're going to generate the actual archetype, right?
Yeah, you have to fill it in a little bit.
That's fine.
The first few properties here are just pointing to which archetype to use.
Okay.
And the rest are like your project name and your group ID and your project version, etc.
For some reason, I'm not finding where's my
terminal?
Sublime. No, I was just going to literally just pull. Oh, there it is. Okay. I was just going to pull open Sublime because when I do these multi-lines, I just like to have like a nice, there we go. Okay. So keeping all that the same.
You just change the archetype version to 1.8.
Oh, 1.8. Yep.
I'm not sure why I have 11 here. Maybe a few new releases.
Let's see the group ID.
This is
our group ID, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we're
you can use whatever here.
Trino.
Oh well, I wouldn't use an existing one. That's bad practice because it kind of means you're gonna be
so
impersonating someone.
We'll do dev.bits on data.
Yes.
So bits on data dev, and then my artifact ID, we'll call this SQL Trino SQLite because this one we know is going to work.
1L with a single L.
1L. I do that every time. Jesus. Yeah. All right. Class prefix. So this is like what we want. Can this just be empty, or do we just want to call this like Trino SQLite?
SQLite.
Like that?
You're typing to else because you're pronouncing SQL as SQL,
SQLite.
as
Yeah.
SQL.
SQLite. Yeah.
SQLite. Yeah, that's
SQLite.
gonna make it easier.
Okay.
And
So this is going to be
you don't need a
prefixed.
Trino prefix. Like it makes it a little bit too long. Like a
Okay.
prefix needs to be short. It should be short.
SQLite, right?
Hmm.
Okay. So
So
SQLite and
yeah,
then
this
connector
is gonna
name.
pop up in a few classes in the connector.
Okay.
It's not required per se because those classes are gonna be unique anyway. But like it's like a convention used across all Trino connectors.
Okay. And then
The
if we're
connector
gonna
name is probably gonna be the
SQLite,
same but
SQLite.
lowercase. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is what's gonna be put in the connector name, and you're gonna have to. This is what you're gonna be using in the connector.name property in the property
Got it.
file for the
Yep.
when you be installing it in Trino.
Got it. Okay. So this will be like SQLite dot properties or something like that.
Yep.
Okay. And then do we have to make a GitHub for this or is
So I mean you don't have to you don't have to use valid like existing values here, but you have to specify something because those are required.
yeah?
No, that's like your username, not your
Oh,
email. Yes,
okay.
it's
And
just like
then
the username / repository.
oh this oh yeah, okay. But
It's like
and then we'll call this one
Trino SQLite. Like um, I think I should have some docs around this in the README, like to explain how those values are used, or maybe an example.
let's see.
Because some of them are gonna end up being the same, but like we still need to separate them.
Is it in any of these? Okay, we'll go back to that later.
Yep.
We're getting close to time, so let's just run this and see if this does what we want it to do. So this one we're doing the command line style way, right? Running this in Maven and actually just generating this archetype. Archetype does not exist. We just developed, or we just built that, right? We just built that. Here, let me see the.
You're doing this in this directory. Like you shouldn't be doing this in an existing Maven project. You should
Okay,
just
got
step
it.
out of it because
Okay,
it's
sounds
trying to
good.
do something with the existing POM.
Got it. Oh, hopefully there's not a POM in this directory. Hold on. Nothing. Let's see. In the code directory. Is there something way I need to be pointing to that jar?
Sorry, I was responding to some messages. So the POM. So what's the error? You'd have to scroll up a little bit.
So it's just not finding the artifact that we're looking for. So this is just download. The main thing is just like the desired archetype. This one that we're specifying for your archetype.
Did we? Can you check again? Can you move back to the directory and see? Maybe just run Maven install again. Let's just see what we installed.
No.
Can you just run Maven install again? I don't think we checked the output of this.
Okay.
It succeeded, but let's just make sure which version got installed.
Okay.
Because we still should have the 1.8 tag checked out, and
okay.
I hope got tagged properly, but maybe it's using a different version, like a snapshot version.
Oh,
That would be an issue with the release I made a while ago.
yeah. So, and actually, I think that's it
Yes.
right here.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
1.9 snapshot.
Yeah.
So
So you
let's
can
go.
move.
Let's just fix this to 1.9
Mhm.
snapshot, right?
Yeah, I had this issue when I was doing releases that I made the commit in a different order, and it tagged the wrong commit, basically, like the one too late.
Okay. Define
Oh,
the.
so yeah, so it's using all the properties you set in the command name, but it's there's one additional that I forgot to include, and it's just asking for the value there.
Okay.
And you didn't specify
Oh.
the value,
Oh,
so
when you said.
it used the default one, and it's fine. Like you can run
Okay.
it, and it's asking for the version, but there is actually a default value. You just need to confirm it.
Okay. Let me
And
see. And let me
step
just
out.
step out of
Yeah.
this. Yeah,
Mhm.
I think that was actually the problem this time. Okay. I feel pretty bullish on this. So can I just push enter and it's going to use 1.0/-snapshot
Yeah, so there is a default value, and
and then
now
just
you
put
just have to confirm all the values. And why it failed? Oh, the directory already exists, so it's not gonna clobber your existing directory.
all right. I feel
That's
pretty
actually very
bullish.
good.
That's actually good. Yeah, yeah. It's good that we had this run. Okay, so I think this is the money right here.
Yeah. So it should copy a bunch of files into that.
Oh, okay. All
And
right.
now you can
So,
open that in
yep.
IntelliJ, and you can try building it. And the whole point is that it's like you should be able to run tests on it.
Yeah. So let's a new or not new
Or
project. Sorry,
yeah, open.
cancel. Yeah. Actually, so we need to make it a new. It's a new IntelliJ project, but it is an existing Maven
So
project.
yeah, you can just open it because Maven IntelliJ is gonna see
Oh,
that
yeah.
there's Maven in the directory, and it's just gonna figure out what to do.
There you go. This was the one that we had before, anyways. All
Hmm.
right. Oh my gosh, it happened. The good things happened. All
So
right.
it's in downloading all the dependencies. You can see that on the bottom in the bottom
Yeah.
bar.
Yeah.
When that's done, when it's gonna when it's gonna finish indexing and everything and downloading dependencies, you
Yeah.
should be able to run tests in this project, and those tests actually spin up a local Trino server with this plugin installed. So like you will be able to, and so the test executes some very simple queries against
Yeah.
this connector. So this actually proves that this connector is operating correctly.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So I think this is a good stopping point. Like so this is the scaffolding part that we were talking about. And that's to set this part up. Okay. So I know it looked like a lot of work for us to kind of go through and explain this stuff, but I think most of our time today was actually really spent giving people backgrounds on like Maven and
Maven.
Java.
Yep.
And Maven is a bit of a tricky subject in its own. But like if you essentially what this repository does for you is you don't really have to know all this detail. Like I think that having this video that we're making today is going to be a good kind of like if you want to know what's going on. But essentially, we could just give you the commands for this, like we just kind of ran through just now. Like if you think about it, we could have done this in like 5 minutes. Pull that code down. We had a couple issues with the current build, like the current latest system that's out there, but Jan can really probably pretty quickly fix that and maybe cut us a new release for the next Trino Tuesday. And then essentially what we'll do is we'll start from the very beginning at that point, pull down the latest release and everything like that, and then just run through this exact workflow. And then we'll run the SQLite next week. But I think having this video where we're kind of pounded our heads just enough, a little bit, to kind of experience, some of that pain that people experience with Maven in general. Ideally, we get this repo to a point where it's one, it does have like the latest stuff where you literally just run from the most recent release and it works. And then two, it would be like having a an ability to basically get this into at some point the main Trino repository and have it align very closely to whatever the latest version of Trino is. Then that's essentially just going to be like, oh, let me just spin out this whatever the latest version of this archetype developer is, and now I can essentially pull up. I actually think, by the way, do you think this should be something that we have aligned to the versions with Trino? Because essentially we could retrospectively make these archetype things for a couple versions back, even like all the way back to 350, let's say, of when we moved to Trino.
So that's why I have this PR in Trino to add the archetype to Trino, and it would just follow the same version numbers. It would be released together with Trino, so you would have an archetype for every version of Trino, basically. And you could just use a different version of the archetype to build a connector for a different version of Trino. So that would solve this problem. On discussing plugin versioning is a different and a longer talk. I have tried both versioning schemes. So either following Trino and not following Trino versions. And there are pros and cons for both, and it's just a choice.
I just feel like, though, and then this is speculative and all this stuff, but I feel like the fact that we do have a Trino version that gets pulled down with these, it would be very useful to. But I understand why you also say there's a reason to have it separated. I'm not going to hold you too much longer because I know you got things to do today. It's Valentine's Day. You got stuff. You got people to swoon, and I almost said womb, but you got people to swoon. A couple last quick comments that Kobe said. So super interesting topic. Thank you, Kobe. So we're definitely going to follow up on this session, and we'll start from this one again from a blank slate, and then Jan, you'll fix a couple bugs and have a new release for us by next Trino Tuesday. We're gonna pull that down, and then we're gonna literally just show how easy it is to do SQLite once you have these basics set up. And so, and I think the follow on from this is let's try to get this thing pushed into Maven Repo Central so that we can actually go through that IntelliJ workflow that I was trying to do.
Yeah, I'm going to try publishing my archetype to Maven Central because I never published any Maven package. So I need to generate some GPG keys and figure the whole process out. That's why I've been just procrastinating on it. But I want to publish my archetype even if the one in Trino is going to get merged.
It'll be a good temporary to get people started.
No, actually, they're going to be different because in Trino, we only going to have the plugin, the Trino plugin in the archetype, and it's perfectly fine. My archetype includes all the other nice pieces like the GitHub workflow. So it's just going to be a different archetype. It's going to help you build a Trino plugin, but with extra bonuses and that you're not going to get just from the Trino repository. And it's good because my version is going to be opinionated, and you're only going to be able to use it with GitHub. If you're using a different VCS like GitLab or just host it yourself, you're not going to need any of this, so you probably just pick the official Trino version.
Yeah. But still, I even think there's a lot of things that we could apply this pattern to. Event listeners are a big one that people tend to do, and all these other pieces. So, So a lot of cool potential here, but hopefully this was very useful for a lot of people. Kobe, says incredible stuff, Jan, and so I agree. Go check out Jan's GitHub. It is full of cool random projects around Trino. And
I got 5 connectors.
Yeah. So
all of them are useless,
but they're fun.
Yes. Yes, that's why I made them.
Yeah. They're maybe useless from an analytics perspective, but it depends on, you have to define what useless means, because useless is depending on the eye of the beholder kind of thing. So thanks for sticking around, Kobe and Evo and everybody else who tuned in today or is going to watch this later. Hopefully this is useful. We'll try to pull some tidbits out of this, and I'll definitely index this to make this a little more digestible. And so next week we will, I promise. Oh, okay, I'm not going to promise real hard, but pretty hard, pretty close to 99% promise that we'll get to the SQLite creating next time, and we'll just rush on through it.
Start with that next week, and then we're gonna do all the commenting.
Yeah, then we're just not gonna say a single word until we're done making the SQLite connector.
Yep.
All right, sweet. All right, talk to you later, Jan. Talk to you later, everybody else.
Thanks.
See y'all.
See ya.